I still can't believe that in 2024, it requires a whole SaaS company to be able to just let somebody buy a digital product from you and have that item shipped to them via email. It's kind of crazy. Yet, oftentimes, when I tell people that you can really use AWS to have a couple of services do all of that heavy lifting for you, their mind is blown because it really is stitching together two or three services and you're off to the races in your own application. No third party SaaS provider needed. That's exactly what we're going to do in this application. I'm going to show you how we can extend what we learned in my previous video by using Stripe as our payment processor so that when a user purchases an item, we use a webhook to grab an item from S3 and have it emailed on over to them. Let me show you exactly what we're dealing with. So here I have this application, and as I mentioned, it's pretty straightforward. We have the ability to get a song. So you come here to the landing page and you just click on get your song. And the whole idea is that a Stripe webhook is going to be triggered so that way a Lambda function gets invoked. That Lambda function gets the item from S3 and emails it over to our customers. Now we're using the sandbox account in our application, but I'll show you some tips and tricks on how to get that into production. So stay around towards the end of the video. But as you saw, when I click on this button right here, nothing is happening. So we have to fix that. Let's hop into the code and get things started. Now, just to show you that there are no smoke and mirrors going on and that this really is just a Next.js application, here's what we have. We have Tailwind classes being used. We have that H1 tag for the header. We have our paragraph tag for additional content. And then down here, this is where we have effectively our button. Whoops, let's fix that. Where we have our button. The button is going to eventually link to a Stripe payment link. But as we come down here, we have additional card information. And then finally, the footer at the very bottom. Nothing too crazy. Tailwind makes it look like Tailwind. And we need to fix this and get things set up with an actual AWS powered backend. Now I'm going to be using AWS Amplify Gen 2. Been having a lot of fun with it recently, and I want to keep that going. So as I get my Amplify Generation 2 project set up, I can just type in npm create, and then we can say amplify. And I like to put in at latest. And because I'm using an AWS profile, I have my AWS profile right here. Whoops. Hitting enter on that, I should probably pop open the file extenders just so you can see what's happening here. All it's really doing is scaffolding out my project, installing some dependencies, and we're good to go. Once that's done, you can see that it created this Amplify folder. Right over here, we can get rid of this terminal sidebar, and we have two categories. We have authentication and we have data. Auth is nothing but a simple way to log in. And then data is going to be an API that you can use that is also encompassing a database, so that way your data is saved as well. We're not going to be using either of these things. What I'm going to do is click on both of those and give them a nice delete. Again, we really just need an S3 bucket and a Lambda function in our application. I'm going to say let's get started with the S3 bucket because it's one of the easiest services that you can do. Now in Amplify Gen 2, everything is a resource. So I'm going to come over here, create a new file, but it's going to be tucked away in this storage folder. So storage and then /resource.ts. And once I have this file created, I can get our basic S3 bucket set up. And it's just like that. 3 lines of code is really all that you need. We need to bring in the Amplify specific way of defining our S3 bucket, and we give it a name. Now we are going to be adding to this later on in the project, but to get an S3 bucket created, this is all we need to do. Now, I did mention that the other part of the application that we need is going to be our Lambda function. So let's go ahead and get that created, and then we'll talk about what this backend infrastructure is going to look like. Same thing as before, over here in this Amplify directory, we're going to have a new file, except this is going to be in a functions folder. Inside of here, we can give it the function name. In my case, I'm going to call it something like Stripe checkout, and then we can give it the resource.ts file that we need. Super common convention that I'm sure that you'll be accustomed with as we get things moving. Now, same thing as before, once I paste in this information, you can see just how easy it is. We give our function a name, and then we tell it where is the entry point for the business logic, right? The handler that's going to be a part of this function. I always use main.ts. I know some folks use handler.ts, but the cool thing is that it is in TypeScript. That TS file is there. I'm going to call this main.ts, and then we can get a very simple function handler set up for us. So once I'm in this file, I'm just going to paste in this handler file. And this is really all that you need. Now, of course, we're going to revisit this to get everything set up, but at a first glance, super simple. Now, I want to take a moment to talk about what this architecture is going to look like. We have a couple of things that we need to get in place. So let's move over to our screen, open up Excalidraw, and take a peek at what this is all going to look like when we're all said and done. You saw the UI where we have a purchase that needs to be made. When a customer clicks on that button, we're going to be sent over to a Stripe webhook, a Stripe payment link. When a customer completes that, the webhook is then going to be fired. So Stripe needs a URL to invoke as the webhook. We have to give our Lambda function a URL. When this Lambda function is doing its business logic, there are a couple of steps that we want to make sure it has access to. One, it needs the ability to get an item from this S3 bucket. That just makes sense. That's where we're storing the item. We should put it there. Next up, we want this S3 bucket to have some kind of MP3 file or whatever digital product that you're trying to sell. We're using an MP3 file. Once it has that, we want the ability to send this MP3 as an email to our customer. Now, here's the distinction. In my last video, we took the pre-signed URL from this item in S3 and we attached it as a link in the email, which is fine and cool. The problem with that is you have a size limit on just how much data you can send over. Now, if you have a small file and you want to send it as an embedded link, perfectly fine. But if you have a large file and you want to instead send it as an attachment, that's what I'm going to be showing you how to do in this video. We'll send it as an attachment and that's it. The user will get it so long as they are verified in our account because we are in a sandbox environment. And again, I'll show you some tips on how to get out of the sandbox towards the end of the video. So with this understanding, I think the first step here is that our Lambda function needs access to our S3 bucket. Now, because we are in an Amplify project, meaning we have both our function and our S3 bucket, there's going to be some kind of utility where we can get that set up. So I'm going to head back over to this resource. And the cool thing is that right in here, if I bring up some IntelliSense options, we have access right here. Now, access is a function. So I can say, I'm going to give you the ability to allow. And then it's like, what are you going to allow? I'm going to allow, and then you pass it this object. And I'm effectively saying anything inside of a products folder. You can name this whatever you want. I'm just naming it products. And when I say anything, I should probably put a /* in there. I'm going to allow a specific resource. And it's like, what resource is that by chance? In our case, it is going to be this Stripe checkout function. And what does it have the ability to do? It has the ability to, and then I can pass it an array of all the things that it can do. You can see right here, like these are all of the options, right? So in our case, it is just going to read, and I can save that up. And that's all that I need to have this Lambda function be given the ability to access our S3 bucket. I specify that on the S3 bucket itself. Now, I don't want to get too far into this application without deploying it. Now that we have that part set up, let's just go ahead and kick this off, open up our terminal, and then we can say npx, ampx, and then we have our sandbox. And the profile that I'm using, you don't have to pass in the profile if you don't have one, but ampx sandbox will get the job done. It is going to look at our application, check out the resources that we have, and get these deployed. The really cool thing is that it does put it in watch mode. So anytime we save, it'll automatically redeploy those resources as well. Looks like I got a TypeScript error somewhere. Let's see what's going on here. This is another cool part. Looks like it's coming from our backend.ts file. And this is just me being lazy. When I deleted those first resources, I forgot to delete what was already scaffolded out for us. Actually reminds me that I should probably bring in storage coming from our storage function here. So there's that. Simplify this a little bit. And then I also need to bring in that function. Now there isn't a special name for the function. You just pass it the name that it needs of the function itself. So when I go up and I click on here, you can see I named it this, and then that's all that needs to be passed in. Great. Give this a save and see if this deploys for us. And it looks good. The initial deployment is always the longest one, right? So 106 seconds to get that set up. What is that, a minute and a half or something like that? From here, we have our outputs set up. We don't really care about this too much, but if you're curious, it did create a outputs file in here with all the good stuff in there that we need anyways. Now, thinking back on our application, we also need two things. We have to give our Lambda function a URL, and we need to pass that URL over to Stripe so that way Stripe knows what to call. That's going to be our webhook. So let's go ahead and get that part set up. We actually do it right inside of here. So I can say const, and then we have our Stripe. We'll just call this our Stripe webhook URL like object. So I'm going to call this backend, and we'll set this equal to, here we go, backend dot. And then now we can say Stripe function, grab that, grab the resources. And then inside of here, we have our Lambda function. And finally, in this Lambda function, we can add a function URL. Now inside of here, you have to give it the configuration. And there are two ways that you can configure this thing. One is going to be with CORS enabled. And then the other one is going to be with like no protection at all. CORS is great if you're calling this from a browser, but in our case, we're calling this from a Stripe backend endpoint. So we actually don't need any protection inside of here. So I'm going to call this auth type. Where are you? Auth type, or are you function auth type? I always get those confused. Yeah, there you are. Dot, and then you have these options here. And then as I mentioned, if you wanted to, you could pass it like CORS in the invoke mode and all that good stuff. But we don't need any of that. And that's all we need. Now, the reason why I'm calling this an object is because if I come down here, I have my Stripe, I guess like webhook object, right? Dot, and then you have properties on it. It's an object full of data with the URL right there. Now, I need that printed out to my console. Otherwise, how am I going to pass it to Stripe? How do I know what it is? To have that put out into that file that I was showing you, that .amplify file right here, let's go ahead and add it as like an output. Now, what we do here is we can say backend dot and then add output. And it's pretty simple where you can pass in like custom arbitrary data. So here we go. I'm going to say Stripe checkout song function. And then we can just say this is going to be our Stripe webhook. Oh, thank you, Amazon Q, for giving me all that data right there. And now that I saved, this should be, yeah, it was like redeploying the whole time. This one took 30 seconds. Come over here. Here's the redeploy that we care about. And let's see. This is going to deploy a new resource. A lot of people think like a function with a URL on it is like one thing, but behind the scenes, those are like two separate things. So it's our Lambda URL resource that is being configured here. And any second, this should be over here. And awesome, we have this in place. You can see if we give it some room here, we have our function URL listed right here. This is what we're going to pass to Stripe. So far, so good. When I come over here, there's only one other thing that I'm going to do. And our function needs the ability to send an email to our customers, right? Now it uses a service called SES to do that. And again, I go over that in my last video, but in short, this is all we need. We give it an additional policy. SES isn't part of the Amplify ecosystem, but fortunately we can construct it on our own. There we go. We're just going to import this. We're going to add a new role, or rather we're going to enhance the role that was given to us. We're going to add it just like that. And then we will pass in the policy that our function needs. It needs the ability to send an email and to send a raw email. I'll show you why we need the raw email once we get to it. Save this up. This is going to trigger another redeploy just like that. And that's it in terms of what we need to be doing right now. I think we need to pass our URL over to Stripe. And that would be like a good next step because then we can get our Stripe secrets in Webhook secret. What I'm going to do is come over here to, oh, where are you? There we go. My URL. I'm just going to grab this real quick. And then we can hop over to Stripe. Now, in Stripe, I'm in test mode first and foremost. And then secondly, I am going to have a Stripe payment link set up. So I can come over here and we have a payment link that we can click on. Shortcut is that I can press CL and it will take me to this page. It's a cool little handy shortcut. Feel free to create a brand new product if you don't have a product. I've done this a couple times, obviously. So I'm going to say that this is my product right here. And then you can customize it however you want. I have a logo inside of here. I have the prices and then all that other good stuff. Keep in mind, the only thing we really care about are going to be the name in the email because we got to send it to them, and name because maybe we want to personalize the email a little bit. Who knows? Up to you. I'm going to create this link. We have it. So I guess maybe let's do two steps at once, right? I'm going to copy this link, head back over to my application. Inside of our page right here, instead of this href being just the pound sign, let's just give that what it needs to be. Head back over to Stripe. And now we can go to developers. And then from developers, we can click on webhooks and we can add an endpoint. Now this is just going to be the endpoint for the Lambda function that we have. So I'm going to say YouTube Stripe webhook just for my own sanity. And then the events that we're going to listen to, I'll select this. And what is it? Is checkout. There we go. Checkout session completed is the one that we want. It has the actual event that we need to be subscribing to right here. We'll come back to that in just a second. And then when we're all done, we can add on the events. Real quick, I don't know why it always does this. I want the latest version of the API. It does switch things up just a little bit. But then, yeah, I'm going to add the endpoint. We have this in place. We have a couple things inside of here. Now, I'm obviously going to delete this by the time this video is published, but You want to gather not this copy ID. I don't know why they put that there because it's misleading. Stripe, if you're listening, fix that. But we don't want that. We want this signing secret right here. Took me too long to grab that. I'm going to copy this. And we also need one more key. That key is going to be our secret. Where are we at? API keys. And then here's the publishable key. Doesn't really matter if people see that. But then we have our secret key. I'm going to copy this off screen so that you folks don't see it because it is my test account, but I don't want you all mucking with it. Okay, I just copied that. That's pretty much all we need to do from a Stripe perspective though. So when I head back over to my application, I need to add in those secret environments, right? My Lambda function needs the ability to configure Stripe, and it does so with those secret keys. So over here in my application, let's head back to my function. We're going to go to the resource because we're going to enhance this in just a moment. But I can come in here. Let's maybe open up like a third terminal. We're getting terminal heavy here. That's okay though. They're free. So we're going to come here and let's say that we want to add in a secret for our application. I'm going to say npx, ampx. We have the sandbox set up, except in this case, we want to say, what is it? Secret set, I believe. And then we give it a name. Now the name that we want to use in our case is going to be Stripe a secret, because I think that's the last one that I copied. And then you'll get this prompt. Now, whatever you type in here, you can't see. So if you mess up, you have to do like the weird like backspace to infinity thing. I am just going to copy this and then hit enter. And that'll come back to the terminal because it's going to show the secret if I do it otherwise. Okay, so I did that for the Stripe secret. And then I'm going to do it one more time, except this time I'm going to change Stripe secret to Stripe webhook. This is going to be my webhook secret. Again, you can name these whatever you want, but this is just what I'm doing. Okay, so I have both of those added, and you can check in the AWS console if they got set up. They do, but I'm going to clear this out in any case, because now that we have these, we can come over here and we can say, you know what, I'm actually going to additionally make use of secrets, okay? And inside of this function, I want to also say, here are the environment keys that I want to pass to it. Now look what I'm doing here. I have Stripe secret. So all of these are going to be like process.env.whatever. But what's really cool is that by using this syntax, it will automatically grab the secret from AWS, parse it for my use. And by the time it gets to my Lambda function, it's the actual like decrypted value. I don't have to do any weird get this encryption key and all that other stuff. And these are just straight up environment variables that I'm just passing through. They're not secret, but they are specifying where that product is going to live and what the product is going to be called. So we'll need that shortly. And then for good measure, I'm just passing in the from email address. This is going to be my email address that's already verified instead of SES. I'll show you once we get to the SES portion, what that all looks like. Cool. So I have all of the like code that you're going to be needing for this. There's a repo in the description. Feel free to check out that stuff. And effectively, you're not going to have to see me struggle through like the typings and make silly mistakes on typos. So I'm just going to enhance this and I'll show you what the like main code ends up looking like. So step one, we are going to need to verify that Stripe webhook. So we'll come back to the switch statement in just a second. But the very first thing we need to do is verify this Stripe webhook secret. So I will create a helpers directory right over here. And inside of this, we're just going to have a couple utils. So inside of here, we'll say helpers, and then inside of helpers, we'll have, what is this called? Verify Stripe webhook. Awesome. Now I've already installed the Stripe package in my package.json. You just come over and if you want to take a look, this is my package.json in like the root of my project. And then inside of here, I have Stripe listed right there. All good. So I'm going to paste this in and then we can talk about what's happening here. I guess first and foremost, I'm bringing in that Stripe package. Secondly, my environment variables for my Lambda function are tucked away in this special like Amplify directory. It's really not that special. It's just a shortcut for this. Over here on the side, you can see Amplify generated env yada yada. At the bottom, it has like placeholders for your secret stuff. So nothing's really hidden. It's just pushed to the side. But this is a very generic way of verifying your Stripe webhook. I use it across like every Stripe project that I do for webhooks. It takes in the headers. It grabs the header and the body. I type that out for you. And then you can see here, we're going to configure Stripe with our secret. We are going to grab that secret value that's passed in the header from Stripe. And then how that works is we need to say, hey, look at the body. look at that Stripe signature and also pass in my secret. Stripe gives you this constructor that will do all of this and effectively try to use these values to decode and say, is the secret that you gave me the same as the like parsed body and secret that I have? If it is, then great, we have our Stripe event. I'm just going to return that to the user. Otherwise, we have an invalid signature. Nothing too crazy. So then now back over in our main file, now we can uncomment this switch statement. We can say, hey, I have my Stripe event. It has a type on it. And in the case of checkout.session.completed, basically that type that we said we're listening for, then go ahead and fire off our main flow. Now for the main flow, all I'm doing is just passing in the customer email. But again, you can pass in the customer name and all that other stuff that you want to do. Now you can see that I have this main flow function and I haven't defined it yet. So let's just go ahead and bring that inside of here. But we're going to do something like this from the get-go, right? Here is the main flow and it's going to expect a customer email that may or may not be there, depending on, it doesn't know that the customer needed to pass that in. But if there isn't a customer email, then just say, hey, there's no email and throw the person out of the function. Great. Now that we know that we have an email, we can start doing things that we want to do, specifically getting that item from S3 being the very first thing we want. Simple enough. I am going to have another utility function in here. Again, I use this in every single thing that I do. So let's get started by taking care of this like environment scenario. So I have these up in here and then I can come down and simply just bring in that environment token, right? env dot, and then it brings in all the stuff that I need. So get an item from S3. And then if there isn't one, then just say, hey, like we couldn't find that song value. Let's go ahead and create this file right here, get object from S3. And again, this is another one that I use across pretty much all of my projects. All right, so this file is super generic. And when I paste this in, you can see that I get these values right here. I didn't even need to install this library. It comes with the SDK. But what I have is the ability to pass in a bucket, pass in the object, and say, yep, what do we end up needing here? The bucket name and the object key. Remember that this is going to be like products slash and then the item name. That entire product slash path is the actual key. That's just how S3 works behind the scenes. And then if there's any errors, then log them out. So at this point, we know that we have the item from S3. Let me just import this real quick. There we go. Here we know we have the item from S3, right? This webhook is verified. The item is in S3. All of our secrets are configured. If we have that item, then we can now send the email to the verified user. I'm going to have this snippet of code right here where we are taking bits and pieces from the data that we got from S3. We're getting the content type. We're getting the body, but the body is it's like a whole like buffered array, or it's some kind of data that we don't need. We have to transform it into a byte array. So give me all the bytes. But once I get all the bytes, now I can create like one buffer, one chunk of data stored in memory. And that's going to be what we can use as an attachment in our S3 file. But the important thing is that we have to give it the content type as well. And then I'm also going to pass in the name. So here's the data. Here's the persons that it could be going to. In my case, just me. Here is the content type of whatever item we got from S3. And then here is the name of the file that is going to be listed as the attachment. I guess I could have, like in retrospect, stored this as an object to make that clearer, but here we go. And with that in place, we have the final piece of our puzzle, right? Send SES email with attachment. I'm going to go ahead and create this helper as well. So let's get out of here and then back in our helpers. And what I love is that these helpers can be used across like multiple projects. So let's do a quick paste it in. It's going to be ugly code. Let's save it up and then we'll import it. So now we can talk about it. So we have this set up and then now let's go back to the file and talk about what the heck is going on. So we have this send SES like with attachment thing going on. This is ugly. This is not as great as the HTML way of doing things, but if you want to send an attachment and have access to larger file sizes for your attachment, then this is what you have to do. Now you might be saying, Michael, why can't I use something like resend or something like another like API to get this stuff done? You can absolutely swap this out and do that. And you'll have an easier time with the API, but those are wrappers around this service right here. I'm just showing you how to use it with just AWS services. Let's go ahead and piece this together. So first things first, let's get like my email. This is going to be the email address that it is coming from. Okay. Now in the sandbox mode, again, this is a verified account. However, once we have that, now we can set up this raw email message. And it's just one big string. It's a raw format, right? So it's just a string. but it needs very specific ways of being written. So the from address, this is going to be my email. The to address, this is going to be that array. If we look back at the main file, like the customer email, and then I am added in like my own email just as like a sanity check. If we come back here, then we're going to join that and put it in as a string. Okay. So comma separated. The subject, you can name this whatever you want it to be, subject for the email. The MIME version 1.0, I don't know why. Content type, multi-mix, that means it's, part text, part attachment. And then boundary string is effectively saying like, how am I separating the different parts of this email, like the body and the attachment? And I'm using the string, boundary string. It could be whatever you want, but you have to be consistent in how you reference it. So I have boundary string here. I have the opening. Think of it like opening and closing tags. We have the boundary string for the headers of the email. It's text. I have the text right here, and then we close out that boundary. Now we're on the next boundary. Next boundary is going to be for the attachment. I have the headers listed for the attachment. Content type is the file's content type, MP3 in our case. It's all base64 encoded. It's a buffer that's passed in. And then we have the file name. We pass that in as an environment variable. And then we take that actual buffer, and then this is the data that we need. So here's the content type, and then here's the data for it itself. And then we close that boundary string. That's just how it works. Looks crazy when you look at it for the first time. Still is crazy to me, honestly, but that's just how you do it. The next part isn't so bad. We have all the data that we need. Here is the API call that you need to make. We have our content. Typically, you would have something in here. There's like HTML, which is what we used in the last video. In this case, it's raw. It's just raw data passed in. What's interesting is that we take that string, because it is a string at the end of the day, and you have to pass in a buffer from that. So you bufferize all of that stuff. And that's what you need. That's what you need to make the command. This is going to send it off, I guess, create the chunk that needs to be sent. Down here, we actually do the sending. If it was sent successfully, then we say, yay, it was sent. If not, then we get an error spit back out to us. Let's save it. And we have a couple of things to do to test this out. Actually, one thing to do is put the product in our S3 bucket. So I'm going to open this up. We're going to see that it's already deploying super fast, right? 5-second deploys to AWS. Pretty great. Let's head over to our AWS account. Actually, I should probably head over to my S3 bucket. And what am I calling this thing? Where was it at? In my function? This is an important part. You want to make sure that whatever you called it, it's in the resource file, is what, like, it needs to match. So in my S3 bucket, I'm going to have a products folder / and then the file needs to be called Amplify song.mp3. Great. I'll meet you in my AWS account. Okay, so now that I'm logged into my account, I'm going to head over to S3. Inside of my S3 bucket, let's just look for the one that was created today. It looks like it's this one right here. And we don't have the folder or the product. So let's create that. And we call this products and create the folder. Inside of products, now we can upload the song. I actually already have this. I created it from Suno. So like quick plug for I've been making a lot of songs in here. Suno.com, I guess. And I just make a bunch of AI songs and then download them using developer tools. Okay, so out of that though, let's click on upload. And then now that we're here, I'm going to drag this song over that I grabbed from there. There's our amplify song.mp3. Click upload. And then now we have it in place, right? Close this out. And then I just want to make sure that it is in fact in my products folder. Otherwise, it's not going to work. And now we have the moment of truth. Let's head over to our application. And now that we're here, we can click on this song. We get taken to our Stripe checkout page. I'm going to put in my empty Leendo one, fill out these details. And once I have all these details set up, I can select on pay. And this is effectively going to trigger my webhook. Webhook grabs the secrets, gets the item from S3. And once it gets the item, it emails it over to me. What time is it? It is 10:36 my time. And if I pull up this email, it did go into my junk folder. Again, I'm in the sandbox mode, right? 10:36 my time right over here. And then you can see I have the email listed as an attachment. Pretty freaking cool. If I click on play, you can play the song. I have to overdub it because I didn't share the audio from my screen. Now, I did promise you that I would show you how to effectively get your account out of sandbox mode and use this for a production environment. I emailed the SES team purposely with like fake information, which is what a lot of people do. I guess it's not fake, but it's like insufficient information. I was like, hey, like I create a lot of content on AWS and I work at AWS and I do AWS things. Please give me production access. That's not going to work. Like they will never approve that. You have to give them legitimate reasonings, even if like it is for just basic application usage. So they did respond and they were like, hey, thanks for submitting your request to increase your spending limits. However, do better, basically. Tell us how often you plan to send the email, your recipient list, give us a website, include the links, and all that good information there. How do you manage complaints, bounces, unsubscribe requests? All these things are included to get your account into production access. Super helpful because this is real world stuff, right? You can send SES emails at scale, and they want to make sure that you're not doing so to spam others or be a bother to the community. So do all this stuff. They have an SLA to respond within service level agreement to respond within 24 hours. So you have an open channel to do all of that stuff. They value your feedback, and trust and safety is the way that they do things. Is it a pain to do that kind of stuff? Sure. But at the same time, do you want to spend the monthly premium to have a third-party SaaS provider do that stuff on your behalf? Because that's all they're doing. And if that's the case, then fine, go with them. If not, SES is by far the way to go. And there you have it. Throw this thing on GitHub, hook it up to Amplify hosting, and pop in your environment variables, and everything is going to work just fine. Super quick to do. If you want to see a separate video, it's going to be like 2 minutes long. But if you want to see it on how to get Amplify Gen 2 applications hosted on the web, let me know. And if you want to know more about Amplify in production with SES and attachments and things like that, I'm here for you as well. Just drop me a comment and we can get that all taken care of. Hope you enjoyed the video. This has been super fun to put out. I've been having a lot of fun with Amplify Gen 2. But in any case, if there are other types of videos you want to see, or if you just want to hang out with me on a live stream, let me know down in the comments. But in any case, I'll check you all later. Thank you so much for joining the video. Love you all. See you later, Focus Otters. Bye.